You here to misrepresent the study again?
No, I'm not, man. And actually, I read the study and it said that prior to 1989, the suicide rates did increase. So I want to know, are you like totally hypocritical and biased, or are you just
then the general population? I can't believe I have to say this again. They were higher than the general population. The Sweden study did not analyze post and pre and post op transsexuals in their study. Try again.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that's funny. I mean, I guess I'm just reading a different English language than you are, but
you are. Do you want me to read the conclusion of the study again? I can read the conclusion of the study again.
Well, no, because you cherry pick and you're biased over what you choose to or you're not. So, I mean, regardless of what.
Wait. It's cherry picking to read the entirety of the conclusion?
No, it's cherry picking to say that it's based on the results to the general population, when in fact it was based on. It said that the suicides are higher after transition prior to 1989 compared to the general population than it was for people who had not received the surgery prior to 1989. And yes, I grant you that
cite what section of the study that's in. Cite what section of the study that's in.
What do you mean what section of the study is in?
What section of the study is that in? The study has like 6 sections.
You read it 5 or 6
abstract
times,
yes, and that's why I know that's not in there. That's why I know that's not in there. The study has an abstract and introduction, methods, results, discussion. So what section of the study is that in?
I was clipping and pasting it in the chat. I was clipping and pasting it in the chat when I called last.
What section of the study? Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. Does that mean that I'm wrong, or does that mean that didn't you read the study 5 or 6 times? Couldn't you educate me?
Yes, you are wrong. Yes.
Well,
sure. Hold on. Let me
read
the mortality section of the study. Sex reassigned transsexual persons of both genders had approximately a 3 times higher risk of all-cause mortality than controls. The control was the general population. Also, after adjusting for covarieties. Table 2 separately lists the outcomes depending on when sex assignment was performed. So this was during the period of 1973 to 1988 or 1989 to 2003. Even though the overall mortality was increased across both time periods, then the control, it was more increased than the control. It did not reach statistical significance for the period 1989 to 2003, which means it didn't reach a significant. The fact that it didn't reach significance means it was not statistically higher, not significantly statistically higher than the previous time period. So again, this is per controls. Then the control. Are you stupid? Then the control. Then the control. Then the control. Stupid. Then the control.
Yes.
Then the control. Yes,
exactly.
It was higher than the control. The control population is the general public. Yes, it's acknowledged that transgender people prior and post transition tend to have higher suicidality than the general public. General public. I don't know if you're just dumb on purpose or if like being dumb comes natural to you. Then the general public. And if you really want to,
diabetes comes to you, bud.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck. Then the control. Then the control. I don't know how many times I have to tell you this. Then the control. Should I read it again for the millionth time? Should I read them specifically saying, then the control?
You're just going to ignore anything
because you can't
read.
You keep going. Man. You specifically said it was higher in 1989. Or higher in 1988 to 1989. It was higher in 1988 prior to 1999.
No,
but that's not what it is.
I didn't say anything. I said prior to
it was not. There was no statistical significance between between the period leading up to 1988 and the period post 1988. I literally read that in the data set. They quite literally say there is no statistical significance. It did not reach statistical significance for the period 1999 to 2003, which meant there was no statistically significant change between the last period.
Yeah. Well,
are you fucking stupid?
It's been cited over 108 times in articles.
I don't care how many times something's been cited. I don't give a fuck.
So
read the words.
Something?
Read this. We're just repeating what we did last time. You didn't read the study. And when you did read it, you didn't understand what it was saying. And you go, because a bunch of people cite it, because a bunch of people miscite a study, that means that their miscitations are accurate. Again, no statistical significance. This is in the study under mortality. No statistical significant difference between the period of 1973 to 1988 and 1989 to 2003. No statistical significance. They say that in the fucking study.
Then why did they classify those in two different categories?
Because those were the two time periods they were analyzing. Are you fucking stupid? They found that there was not a statistical significance between those two time periods, which makes sense with everything else they say in the study. You don't fucking know how to read, homie. It's ridiculous.
Just because you talk loud doesn't mean that, you're correct. I mean, I think you should be a little more calm. You should give the diabetes a chance to calm down.
Sure, I'll read it again. I'll read it again. I'll read it again. I'm going to mute you and read it again. Sex-assigned transsexual persons of both genders had approximately a 3 times higher risk of all-cause mortality than controls. The control, again, is the general population. Also, after adjusting for covariates, Table 2 separately lists the outcomes depending on when sex assignment was performed. So they looked at when sex assignment was performed between 1973 and 1988. Then they looked at a separate outcome between 1989 to 2003. Even though the overall mortality was increased across both time periods, per the general population, higher than the general population, it did not reach statistical significance for the period 1989 to 2003. The Kaplan-Meier curve suggests that survival of transsexual persons started to diverge from that of matched controls after about 10 years of follow-up. The cause-specific mortality from suicide was much higher in sex-reassigned persons compared to matched controls. Mortality due to cardiovascular disease doesn't even matter because that's not what we're fucking talking about. Then controls. I don't know how many times I have to say this. I don't know how many times I have to mention that the study specifically disagrees with you. The study, not me, not what I'm saying. The words of the study disagree with you. Go ahead and talk now.
Sex reassigned persons also had an increased risk for suicide attempts. So didn't you say that when someone has a sex reassignment, their risk for suicide goes down?
Then the controls, you fucking stupid. Oh my God, bro. In line with the increased mortality from suicide, sex reassigned individuals were at higher risk for suicide attempts than the control group that they matched them with. You keep cherry picking the words and you call me fucking disingenuous? Me?
So, yes, you're disingenuous because
over controls. Over controls.
Are you going to just talk over everybody?
Over controls.
Didn't you just say something about the last caller talking over
the last caller for how racist the last caller was? They weren't this dumb.
The same things over and over and over. I heard you the first time you said it.
For how racist the last caller was, they were not this dumb. Go ahead, but if you say anything other than the fact that it's higher than the controls, I'm not going to fucking listen to it.
Okay, so conclusion. Persons with transsexualism after sex reassignment have considerably higher risk for mortality, suicidal behavior, and psychiatric morbidity than the general population. Our findings suggest that sex reassignment, although alleviating gender dysphoria, may not be sufficient as treatment for transsexualism and should inspire improved psychiatric and somatic care after sex reassignment for this patient group. And that's what I was trying to address last time, is the fact that the 2011 study in conclusion said that hormone blockers and sex reassignment do not show a decrease in suicide rates or morbidity, and that when they saw an increase in suicide rates and morbidity, it was because people did not follow up with the post psychological care that they need.
Yeah. So again,
if someone has a psychological problem, why not treat the psychological problem rather than mutilate their body?
So again, what you just read quite specifically says they should receive that care after sex reassignment, that they should still get sex reassignment and then they can receive that. It literally says that sex reassignment alleviated gender dysphoria and then they should add in psychosomatic care. Literally says that.
And with that being said, my point is the fact that the study showed that without the long-term psychiatric care, there was no decrease in suicide rates.
And again, we're right back to what I told you last time. We're right back to what I said last time. The WPATH model, which is the one we're currently on, literally tells you to get psychiatric care is a giant part of it. So fun fact,
Okay. That's
now when
all
we
I was
look at,
saying.
and then when we look at the which is, I told you all of this last time, when we look at the mortality under the WPATH model, we see a massive decrease in suicidality. So I literally said all of this last time, said all of this like 3 days ago.
And I was also reading something on the transgender rights organization, and their own conclusion was that hormone blockers and surgery do not decrease suicide rates, and that it's more important to have psychological help than it is to have hormone blockers or gender reassignment surgery. And the point I was trying to make was that if somebody has a mental problem, why not diagnose the mental illness rather than start surgically changing their body, or, you know, using hormones and stuff like that. Like, you know, if someone, like, say you had a transgender person, why not just give them the mental treatment instead of proposing that they make long-term decisions that are going to affect their reproductive?
Because they need to alleviate the gender dysphoria in order to tackle any of the mental health comorbidities. They can't tackle any of those without first alleviating gender dysphoria, which, per the study we both read, the thing that alleviates that is gender affirming medical care.
Then why doesn't the suicide rates change?
They do. I quite literally, do you want a new study? Do you want another study that I can give you one that wasn't done in the 70s? I can give you one that's been done on the current model of care. If you'd like it.
The one we're talking about is from 2011, isn't it?
No, the one that we're talking about was published in 2011, but used data from 1970 to 2003. It was published in 2011, but that's not when they collected the data for it.
Okay. Well, it's still published in 2011. I don't think it's like, you know, research from the 70s if it's gone on for 40 years, bro.
Holy shit, bro. There's no way. Again, post 2003, we changed the model of care that is provided to trans people that was provided to them in that study. So that study was looking at a model of care for gender identity disorder and gender dysphoria that we currently don't use. We use a completely different model of care. That would be like if you were trying to analyze something and said, well, cancer treatment kills cancer patients, but the data you're looking for was when, in order to cure cancer, we leached people and not looking at chemotherapy. This is what you're doing. So don't call me intellectually dishonest when you don't understand how to read studies and read information.
Bro, look, I was saying that gender dysphoria is a mental condition, and that the studies have shown that it's more of a mental condition than it is physical discomfort with their dysphoria. And that's what the work that I was reading was showing, was that the therapeutic process was more mental than it was physical. And that was my point of why not give them the proper health care that they need, say for a juvenile whose suicide rates are much higher than the adult population, to give them mental health counseling instead of having them mutilate their bodies and destroy their chance to reproduce, man. That's the only thing that I was saying.
I'm going to answer it. I'm going to answer it again. I'm going to answer you again. I'm going to answer you again. Mental health counseling does not fix gender dysphoria. You can counsel it, but you're not going to get rid of the dysphoria, which is the thing that's causing the distress, which causes morbidities, in which causes people to commit self-harm acts or suicide or have suicide ideations. If you don't get rid of the underlying issue, you can't therapy away this, right? So like I can't therapy away somebody from having depression, right? You can't therapy away like clinical depression. You need something to address the clinical depression. Therapy can help after you've addressed it, but it's not the thing that addresses it.
Okay, so my question then becomes, if someone has gender dysphoria and they show discontent about their gender, then why would you tell them that they can change their sex and perform a surgery to change sex? Because sex reassignment is not possible biologically. It's an aesthetic that helps them feel better about themselves mentally, but the physical reality of it is that they cannot change their sex. And
so
once they
first of all, per neurobiology, phenotypic sex is a modifiable trait. All neurobiologists agree with this. Phenotypic sex, which is the things that get changed via or via sex reassignment surgery, is modifiable. It is absolutely changeable. You can change your hormone levels. You can create completely working sex organs, not reproductive organs, but sex organs. You can completely create working reproductive sex organs. You can change your physical appearance to be more phenotypically in line with that sex. All of these things are possible. Whether you believe it or not, this is
you cannot change your sexual organs, because when they do plasty that changes your sexual organs, those are pseudo genitalia.
What is the purpose of let's analyze this. What is the sexual purpose of a vagina?
It's the female reproductive part of the body.
I didn't ask about the reproductive part. I already said that you cannot. You reproductive organs are not something that can be changed right now. I asked what is the sexual purpose of genitalia? The sexual purpose.
To reproduce.
The sexual purpose, not the reproductive purpose.
What do you mean? Sex is for reproduction, man. So the sexual purpose is for reproduction. I mean,
no, I don't know how many times I have to say this. You don't need, for instance, someone doesn't need to have a penis in order to create children. If they have sperm, they can just have the sperm extracted and put into a person, right? So you don't need a penis to have sex or to reproduce. It's an easier way to do it, but you don't need a penis to reproduce. What's the purpose of a penis when it comes to having sex? What is the penis used for when it comes to having sex?
So, yeah, okay. Well, then the purpose of the penis is to deliver the sperm from the testicles.
So I'm just going to answer the question because clearly you don't know the difference between sex and reproduction. So the purpose of a penis is to feel pleasure, right? That's the purpose of that's why the head of the penis has a lot of nerve endings. It's so that sex can be a pleasurable experience. The vagina has a lot of nerve endings so that sex can be a pleasurable experience, right? It's to release endorphins during sexual intercourse. Not all sex needs to be for fucking reproduction. Some people just fuck to fuck. So when it comes to the genitals, a penis, you can have a phalloplasty, which creates a penis that is capable of pissing and capable of getting hard and capable of fucking and feeling pleasure on the head. So because of this, it is a fully functioning genitalia. It's not a fully functioning reproductive organ, which I have already stated, but it is a fully functional genitalia. It's the same with a vaginoplasty. Fully functioning genitalia.
So you don't think that having genitalia that doesn't function in its proper sexual nature has an effect on people's mental health?
Sometimes, but not for trans people. Trans people don't fucking get vaginoplasties and then go, "Oh, I'm so sad I can't have kids. I guess my vaginoplasty is to blame." What?
Well, no, but I have seen a lot of people that have come out and said that they regret their vaginoplasty because it's really literally just a hole in the body that they have to keep from closing up and getting infected, and they'll die from an infection.
You haven't seen a lot of people regret their vaginoplasty because the regret rate for bottom surgery is under 3%.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, then what about all the people that are coming out and advising kids not to transition and just due to the horrors of like botched surgeries and that you have to go back several times to fix mistakes? And
except you don't. Except that's not there's no statistical significance in any of this. You're just lying. Again, I can give you a direct study. It's a 50-year, which I talked about, by the way, when you called last time, a 50-year longitudinal study of bottom surgery. And the total regret rate for bottom surgery was 2.2%. Of all the people that got bottom surgery, 2.2% was the regret rate.
Well, a lot of things with these surgeries, too, is they have a lot of problem following up with patients after surgeries and losing contact with them. And so that affects the statistical numbers of the surgery.
Except there was no statistical significance of people who refused to follow up. Over the 50-year time frame, the bulk of people in the study followed up with the study.
Okay, I'm just saying that that's an issue. I was, when I was going through these studies that, I just don't understand, but I was trying to read anyway. It would talk a lot about the follow-up and how it affects statistics, because not everybody was able to be followed through with the study. Some people committed suicide, other people, just decided not to participate in the study anymore, and so on. So, yeah, it's not, 100% accurate with the statistics, but, that should play some role on the percentage that you're quoting, though, shouldn't it?
No, because this study, everyone who participated continued the study.
Okay, but there has been other studies where people didn't fully participate.
But I'm not quoting those other studies. I'm quoting one specific study where all of the participants continued in the study. In fact, I don't think a single person didn't finish out the study. So why would another study's wrong method or another study's fluctuating methodology matter in the study I'm talking about, which does not have that fluctuation in methodology?
Okay. Well, how come there's doctors that speak out against transitioning if all the statistics and all the medical body that we have right now that we're basing this off of? I mean, how come there's doctors that can read the same studies and say that they feel that these methods are harmful in the long term? Where are they deriving their information from? Is it just their opinion because they're quoting as well?
Yes, because there have been no significant studies. Here's the thing that I always like to talk about. When it comes to the anti-trans side, they have an agenda. That agenda is to get rid of trans people. It's been very clear. They've been very vocal about it. It seems interesting that there's this mass group of people that don't want this, yet they can never. Why has there not been a study done to show what they want to show? Why has there never been a study a study that shows the harm of gender affirming care? It doesn't exist. None of them exist.
Well, people keep quoting that 2011 Sweden study,
which doesn't say what they think. Which doesn't say what they think it says, right? It doesn't. I already read to you how it doesn't say what they think it says. So the fact that if they put out a study tomorrow, right? If they put out a study tomorrow that showed quite literally that anyone under the age of 18 that has gender affirming care has 100% verifiable worse outcomes, I would change my fucking mind. If the study was verifiable, correct, my mind would be changed. My mind would be changed tomorrow. But the study doesn't exist. No, it doesn't. Source it for me.
There is a study out of Denmark that talked about the suicide rates, and it said that they're significantly higher in juveniles, up to 40% higher in juveniles with suicide attempts than it is in adult males who transition. So, I mean, does that affect your opinion at all?
All suicide is higher in the younger populations. So no, that doesn't change my opinion. That's just kind of obviously younger people tend to have a harder time dealing with any sort of emotional trauma. So yeah, the suicide rate would be higher, but this isn't a causation or correlation thing. They're not making a correlation.
Okay, so if you're saying that young people usually have a hard time of dealing with things, then, wouldn't putting all the stress of a reassignment surgery or, possibly reassigning their gender, putting that stress on them, wouldn't you see that as a negative?
Also, I just pulled up the Denmark study, and it says the exact same fucking thing as the Sweden study. In conclusion, in this Danish population-based retrospective cohort study, results suggest that transgender individuals had significantly higher rates of suicide attempts, suicide mortality, and suicide unrelated mortality, and all-cause mortality compared with the non-transgender population.
Yeah. Okay, so what's your point? I mean, that's what we've been sitting here talking about the whole time. So you're just gonna?
You said that young kids had a higher rate than adults, but that's not what this study shows. The study doesn't even talk about that.
Bro, I was specifically. I know for a fact it said that, man. I don't know.
Then give me the name of the study.
Yeah, they're all cohort studies. I didn't know that a cohort study was a type of study. I thought that was a specific study. So I was reading all this cohort shit. And you know what I mean? I'm gonna start writing shit down. But yeah, it specifically said that the suicide attempt rate was higher in adolescents, and it was around 40%, and that was much higher than adults. So if by your rationale that people that are younger have a higher suicidality than adults, then shouldn't they wait to transition until they're an adult so that they would have a less suicidality?
No, because the reason that they attempt suicide more is because of gender dysphoria and the fact that they are not supported in their identities. And when they do support themselves in their identities, when they do get that support, when they do receive these things, if they have severe gender dysphoria, their suicide rate, the rate of suicidality drops. It drops.
Only with mental health counseling, though, right?
Yes, because the mental health counseling is to address the comorbidities, while the gender affirming care is to address the gender dysphoria. You can't address the comorbidities without first addressing the gender dysphoria. You can't do it.
So,
for instance,
okay,
here I'll make a claim. I'll make a comparison that you'll fully understand. I can't run a half marathon until I first lose a bunch of weight. Would you agree?
no, because David Goggins
Okay.
ran a marathon, broke all the bones in both his feet, man.
So then he didn't run a half marathon if he broke all the bones in his fucking feet.
Well, no, he actually ran 300 miles.
I wouldn't say successfully if all the bones in his feet.
His name is David Goggins, but yeah,
Okay.
he's a lot bigger than you were.
Did you have anything else?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about white supremacy if you want to. I think that's a.
I don't. I don't. Fuck, bro.